Welcome back. With me tonight, live from Bismarck, Representative Bob Skarphol. Here's a gentleman who's the chairman of the subcommittee of the Education of the Appropriation Committee. Bottom line, what that means, this guy knows where the money's at when it comes to education. Representative Skarphol, thanks for joining me. And I want to jump right in here because recently at one of your committee meetings, you basically made accusations to higher ed officials, legislators, that they've been creating a conspiracy to remove Chancellor Skarphol. Why specifically did you say that?
Well, Chris, first of all, I don't think I used the word conspiracy. What I kind of tried to bring out was the fact that I believe there was knowledge in advance of Linda Baisler Porter's coming to our committee, and I was a little bit disturbed by the fact that there wasn't more awareness made of her potential accusations to the board, to the general counsel of the system office, to the compliance officer in the system office, and I just found it disturbing.
So tell us more about those accusations specifically, because I've got a soundbite from her I want to play for you in a moment, but what accusations did she make specifically?
Well, I mean, she made the accusation that there was fraud done by the chancellor in presenting information to the committee, and it was baseless.
I'm going to play a soundbite for you. We actually asked Linda to join us here on the show. She declined our invitation to be on the show, but she was recently on KFGO's News and Views. I want you to listen closely, Bob. I'm going to play this soundbite for you and then get your comments. This is Linda Porter. Now, keep in mind, she is the Student Information and Reporting Liaison for the Office of the Chancellor. Please roll the soundbite.
Over the last 6 months, I have watched as people are manipulated and, yes, I will say, threatened and asked to do things that are not appropriate. Those things will come out on their own, and I don't want to go into that place. But when people sit at their desks and cry, when people are haggard and stressed to the point where they're sick, where the environment that we work in, you are not allowed to do the right thing without approval. That's not a system that is about open and honest interactions. And
Bob, those are some pretty strong words. Manipulated, threatened. She's obviously talking about the Chancellor's office and his leadership style. In your opinion, why would she say that?
Well, Chris, obviously when there is a situation that needs to be reevaluated and potentially repaired, like higher education as needed, and someone from the outside is brought in, I don't care if it's in higher education or in any company, when someone new is brought into leadership and has to make significant change, obviously the people that work there are going to get uncomfortable. And if some of them have higher stress levels or a lower tolerance for stress than others, that's unfortunate. But, you know, sometimes change is hard. And, you know, a new boss has a different way of doing things, and that may be stressful to people. And like I say, you know, that's just life when change is happening.
So when she uses the word manipulated and threatened, you're okay with that? I mean, you're making it sound like, you know, Chris, you just misinterpreted what's going on.
Well, Chris, you know, not being part of the discussions in these particular areas, I'm not gonna comment on that. I don't know the particulars. I have a difficult time believing that of Chancellor Skarphol. I've got to know him personally. I find it just very unfortunate that his message has gotten lost in the drumbeat of controversy that people have perpetuated with regard to his personality and the way he does business. He's passionate about what he does and believes, and I mean, that's just the way he comes off.
In your opinion, do you think he's the right guy for the job?
Absolutely, I do. I think that, you know, there was significant change needed. There is significant change needed in higher education in North Dakota if we want to move onward and upward. If we want to elevate the status of these institutions, we need to do a better job than we're doing. As chairman of the Higher Ed Interim Committee over the last 4 years, when we'd ask for information, we'd have an incredibly difficult time getting the information, and when we did, it was usually voluminous and hidden somewhere in there with the information we asked for, but it was troublesome to try to find it, and that's just not acceptable in today's world with the technology we have. When you ask a question, the answer should be virtually instantly available.
Bob, let me ask you this, because you talked about Chancellor Skarphol being a quote-unquote outsider. I said in the first segment, hey, is he getting all this heat because maybe he talks a little bit different than a typical North Dakotan, looks a little bit different? In your opinion, from what you're hearing, is that maybe part of this conversation?
Well, I think it's part of the conversation that's been used to detract from his message. And that's, like I said, unfortunate. People who listened to the news heard that he was in Grand Forks recently and addressed the economic development folks in Grand Forks. And he came away from that meeting, and the responses I've heard from people who were at that meeting is his message is right on target, exactly what needs to happen. But like I say, unfortunately, it's gotten lost.
Bob, I want to ask you this. We got this note today, an email from our whistleblower hotline, if you will. It came in. This is from the NDSU Bison Caucus. Hope we've got the screen grab. I want to bring this up for our audience and share some of this stuff with you. But it basically says this: we need your immediate help. Amendments to Senate Bill 2003 passed yesterday in the House Appropriations, Environment, and Education Subcommittee. The higher ed bill essentially is just getting gutted. They say, hey, this is going to be heard tomorrow in your committee. Contact Representative Skarphol, other people. What's going on here? Are you gutting the higher ed funding?
Chris, you know, we made some significant changes, but this is about the negotiation process in the end. And we have to have differences if we're going to have a real negotiation process. The Senate funded, you know, at a way higher level than we believe the House is willing to go. And in an effort to try to do the right thing, we tried to find some mechanisms to make it work. With regard to buildings, for example, if we put a price tag of $29 million on a building, lo and behold, that's what that building costs, whether or not that's what it should cost. And we're trying to find a mechanism that we can use to ensure that we get the best value for the dollars that the taxpayers contribute to these places.
So,
and you know, we've pumped a lot of money into higher education. When you look at some of the data that we have available, and you look at the amount of instructors, for example, that have come into higher education over the last 10 years versus non-instructional staff, it's some pretty staggering statistics to read.
Bob, one last thing I want to share. You talk about mechanisms. It says here it's going to provide $5 million for Chancellor Scrivani to dole out for performance. Is that true, one, and what kind of performance specifically?
Well, Chris, the intent is that you know, we have a pool of money, for lack of a better term, that can be used to encourage campuses to do, you know, to perform above and beyond. And that's what the intent of that money is. It's not to be used in the system office for system office purposes, but it's to go back to the campuses.
Representative Bob Skarphol, thanks so much for joining us from Bismarck. We appreciate your time. We'll definitely have you back on again soon. Obviously, this isn't going away anytime soon. We'd love to know your thoughts on Ham-Scrivani higher ed funding. As always, you can go to our website, 630pov.com. Text us, email us, leave us a voicemail message, and we come back. The sequester is cutting all kinds of things, even the Blue Angels. Stay with us. We'll be right back.